And today I'm reviewing one of my favorite horror movies of all time. You know what? It might as well just be my favorite horror movie. That being Scream. So it came out, I think, 1996 and stars Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette, Skeet Ulrich, Drew Barrymore, and a bunch of other people. So I reviewed Scream 5 a few months back, and I gotta say I love that movie, and I also, like I said, I really love this movie. So it's about some serial killer who's wearing this sort of ghost face looking costume, and he's going around stalking teens and killing them, and he's specifically targeting a girl named Sidney Prescott because it's been a year since her mother passed away, and it's basically up to her to find out who this killer is and defend herself and her life. So what can I say about this movie? Like, it's so 90s, but hey, we love it for that. And I really feel the character of Sidney. Like, I don't know, Neve Campbell does, like, a great job. Like, she's a great actress. Like, she's not just, like, one of those girls who, like, screams and then gets killed easily, and then that's that. Like, you definitely feel her performance in this movie. But the movie always opens with a kill scene. And we discussed about how Ghostface likes to kill people, teenagers specifically, or just anybody really who gets in his way. It opens with Drew Barrymore. It opens with her just having an ordinary night. She's gonna watch a movie with her boyfriend, and she thinks things are gonna go well until she gets a phone call. And that's where we hear the voice of Roger Jackson from the Powerpuff Girls. He's voicing the phone, and you probably know this fun fact, but Roger Jackson actually was mysterious. Like, he didn't get to meet any of the actors because the director, Wes Craven, he didn't want him to meet any of the actors because he wanted to keep things scary. Like, the cast didn't know who the voice was, and to keep them up on their toes, I guess. And it wasn't until years later Roger Jackson met some of the cast at, like, Comic-Cons or whatever. So that's something. And I definitely feel his voice. Like, he does a good job. Like, he's creepy. Like, it's a creepy voice. Silly at times, but hey, that's what we get. And basically, he has threatening dialogue. Like, he threatens to gut her like a fish. And it first starts off just like a regular conversation. He's like, "Hello, who is this?" And then she's like, "What number are you reaching?" "I don't know." But then the calls keep getting more cryptic. Like, he's asking about what her favorite scary movie is. That's where we get the iconic line, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And she's like, "I don't know." But as this is going on, he threatens her, the person on the phone, and she starts to get scared, and she locks the doors, and she threatens to call the cops, but they wouldn't make it in time. And then that's where we find out that the boyfriend, who our character is, Casey Becker, her boyfriend is tied up to a chair, and he's about to get dismembered. And basically what happens is the person on the phone has to play a game, and she has to answer 3 questions or something. And if she gets them all right, the boyfriend gets to live. But unfortunately, she gets a question wrong. She misses the Friday the 13th where she thought Jason was the killer, even though we know it's the mom who was the killer of the first movie. And that's what causes Steve to die. And the way he dies is graphic. Like, you see his guts coming out, and then he's just dead. And that's where Casey opens the door, and then she tries to get out of the house. But the person in the Ghostface costume literally opens the window and smashes it, and then she screams. But she sees her parents coming by, but it's too late. The Ghostface Killer grabs her and stabs her to death, and it's very graphic. Just like you feel so sorry for this girl. And then she's literally hung on the tree. So yeah, this movie is some very rated R content. And the parents try to find her, and they just see that the house is destroyed, and then they freak out, of course, like any parent would. That's where we get the Scream title. Well, no, we did the first scene, my bad. That's where we meet Sydney, and that's where we meet up with her boyfriend, Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich. Skeet Ulrich is definitely a good actor. Like, you feel the creepiness in his performance. Like, the way he talks to Sydney. Like, once I saw him at that window, I already suspected that he would be the killer. And I don't know if you people care about spoilers, but I'll reveal it later. And they do have a little romantic scene. We do see Sydney's father. And then the next day they go to school, and Sydney finds out what has happened. And we find out that her mom died. It's like the crime is worse since her mom died. And we do meet Sydney's best friend, Tatum, played by Rose McGraw. They're both good. I feel the chemistry between those two, for sure, and their characters. I'm going to jump a lot in this video, by the way. But what happens next is Sydney's called into the principal's office by the principal, and he's played by Henry Winkler, the Fonz himself. So that's something. He basically just asks her how long if she was close to Casey. What happens next is after school, Sydney is going home after the bus ride, and she decides to take a little nap after watching TV. She couldn't really handle it because they're talking about her mom. But then later that night, when Tatum calls that she's going to come over so they can watch a movie, Sydney gets another call, and it's, you guess it, the voice, the Ghostface voice. And Sydney thinks it's her friend Randy. Oh, we did get this one scene where we do see the various characters, and they're just talking about what happened. Yeah, that's how we know who Randy is. We also got Stu, played by Matthew Lillard, Shaggy himself. So, but anyway, Sydney thinks it's Randy, but it turns out she finds out it's not once the voice threatens her. And that's where we do see the Ghostface chase Sydney around the house. And it's actually intense. Like he has the knife and he jabs it into the door, and Sydney almost gets stabbed, but she runs up the stairs. And she was even on the phone saying how the women in horror movies shouldn't run upstairs and just go out the front door. And she does exactly what they do. Because she had no other choice, because the Ghostface Killer is just running around chasing her. And she even closes the door in the closet, but the Ghostface Killer is trying to get in. And she ends up trying to call the cops on her computer. I don't know how computers were like back in the 90s, but I guess some people had that. Apparently you can call something through your computer. I don't know. But then the Ghostface Killer goes away. And we do see Billy come through the window. And he's like, oh, I heard noise. And what happens next? Sydney runs downstairs because she thinks Billy's the killer, because a phone falls out of his pocket. And then Sydney goes to the door, and that's where we do see the cop of this movie, Dewey Riley, played by David Arquette. Yeah, Dewey's definitely the quirky type in this movie, because he literally screams when Sydney opens the door, and he's like, I found this. And that's where they arrest Billy, because they think he did it. He's a suspect now. And Billy's just like, it's me, Sid. It's not me. I didn't do it. Even at the police hearing, Billy's just defending himself of his dad. He's just like, I'm innocent. Everyone's got a phone. I just wanted to hang out with my girlfriend. But we know he's lying. I'm already spoiling it. But anyway, Sydney is traumatized for what happened. And she decides to go over to Tatum's house, and we learn that Tatum and Dewey are brother and sister, which is cool. And while they're just having this sleepover, I think Sydney gets a call again from the Ghostface Killer. Somehow he's calling. It could have been, I don't know, but Sydney's afraid, of course, and she has to deal with all this. And now Sydney's under a lot of protection, but she's also getting followed around a lot by the reporter of this movie, Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox. And she apparently wrote a book about Sydney and her mom. And she's thinking the guy who killed Sydney's mom is innocent. Cotton Ridley, played by Liv Schreiber. Yeah. And Sydney doesn't like Gail. And she even punches her, which is kind of become a running gag in the movies, even in the sixth one. And what happens next is Sydney's trying to deal with whatever's going on at school. Like, people are dressing up like Ghostface, and they think it's all a joke, a little. And I do like the line where Matthew Lillard, he's like, oh, this is like Christmas. And then Sydney decides to go to the bathroom after getting us into a fight with Billy, because they let him go. And he's just like, there's no way it could have been me, Sydney. And Sydney's just like, oh, your mother left you. Your mother's not lying in a coffin. It's just all drama. But Sydney goes to the bathroom, and that's where we do get this scene where these two girls are gossiping about her and calling her various mean things. And fun fact, I actually met one of the actresses who was in this bathroom scene. I think her name is Nancy Ann Drew. I have to look it up. But I met her. I asked her about Matthew Lillard, and she was very nice. Very kind lady. And I appreciate her being in a Scream movie, which is cool. I think she's only known as Bathroom Girl. So that's fun fact. That is just cool. But Sydney ends up seeing what looks like someone hiding under a stall. And this is probably what leads to people being scared of going into public bathrooms. And I don't like public bathrooms myself. We see the lines of shoes, boots, and what looks like a Ghostface costume. And what comes out is Ghostface. It could have been someone fake, but Sydney ends up running out of the bathroom. That was a cool scene. But what happens next is Principal Wimpley, he ends up finding the Ghostface costume. And he ends up trying to beat him. He almost expelled two students because they were messing around as Ghostface. And he feels that they're being disrespectful towards the people that were killed. But what happens next is Principal Wimbley thinks something's going on since he's all alone. Since he had to call off school because of the killings. But what happens is Principal Wimbley is killed by Ghostface when he comes out of nowhere and kills him. The Fonz has been killed. But we did get a Wes Craven cameo of him as Freddy Krueger, since he did direct Nightmare on Elm Street. So that's cool. And what happens next is Sydney's kind of just getting through things as this is going on. But apparently Stu is going to have a little party. And Sydney's invited. Honestly, it's a bad idea that they're having a party since there's some serial killer walking around. I'm surprised that they even had a party. But Sydney, Tatum go to this party. I may skip some things, my bad, but we also get a scene with David Arquette and Courtney Cox. This is what sort of started their little relationship in real life. And we do get their romance. I guess it was just like a side plot, but yeah, it might seem cringy to some, but I wasn't really too bothered by it. Because we see the relationship unfold even more once they get to this party. And surprisingly, once the party gets started, they're going to watch a bunch of horror movies, drink beer and stuff. But it looks like... honestly, I guess I had this one little nitpick. I wonder why Dewey was okay with them having a party when they're all still in high school. So, I don't know. It's just like a weird pothole. But as this is going on, we do get some over-the-top stuff, deaths. What happens is our Tatum, she goes down into the basement. And she ends up trying to get more beer bottles. It's a bad idea. Don't go to the basement alone if you're in a horror movie. But she did. But apparently the garage door is closed, the door's locked, and she ends up trying to get her way back, but the garage is closed, and that's where we see Ghostface again. And Tatum ends up getting into a good fight with Ghostface at first. She throws beer bottles at him, hits him with a fridge. But apparently, Tatum does the worst decision in this movie. She tries to get out through a cat door. That is just a bad idea and ends up killing her. And she literally dies getting crushed by this garage door. It's just, graphic. Ghostface is going on over the top. Even Tatum didn't take him seriously. She's like, "Is that you, Randy?" And the Ghostface is like, "Mm-mm." But then the Ghostface hides away. And that's how I probably knew it's Billy, because Billy shows up out of nowhere when Sydney's looking for Tatum. But apparently everyone wants to leave this party, but some people are still watching the horror movie, and then Billy shows up, and Sydney and I guess Billy decide to work things out, their arguments lately. And we do get a sex montage of them, but while everyone's watching horror movies. And that's where we get this iconic scene with Randy, where I'm just going to show this photo since Randy's in it. Randy ends up describing every choice you make in a horror movie. Like, number 1, don't have sex, don't drink or do drugs. Everyone's just kind of clowning at him. And he says, never ever say, "I'll be right back." And then Matthew Lillard's like, "I'm getting another beer. You want one?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. I'll be right back." And then they all scream. It's funny. And so what happens next after the sex montage? That's where Ghostface comes and then attacks Billy, knocking him out. But it almost looked like he killed him, but he's not dead. That's where Sydney's kind of just running around Stu's house. She escapes through a window. She ends up going to the news van because Gale Weathers and Dewey were hanging out. And they hit a camera to find who the Ghostface killer is. And she ends up hiding in there until the Ghostface killer ends up killing the news cameraman. Ugh. His death is graphic. He gets his throat slit. And while Dewey tries to confront, after he finds Sydney's dad's car, and they're trying to make it seem like he's the killer, even though we find out he's not. And Dewey goes to the house again to investigate, but he is stabbed and almost thinks like he's killed. But then Gale tries to get into her car, but she ends up accidentally crashing into the ditch. Yeah, we almost thought she died. But then Sydney goes back to the house where everyone's gone crazy, basically. Stu tries to have Sydney grab the gun because she grabbed Dewey's gun. And Randy's just like, "Oh, wait, Sydney, it's not me." And then Sydney's just like, "F you guys." And then that's where we finally get the reveal of who the Ghostface killer is. Yeah, it's Billy and Stu. I do like the line where Billy's like, "We all go a little mad sometimes." It's just a bunch of references to horror movies. There's a lot. It's a parody of horror movies. But what happens next is that's where Billy unleashes his full psychopath mode. And I do like the line, "Surprise, Sydney." And we find out why Billy and Stu are going on these killer rampages. It's because Maureen Prescott, Sydney's mom, had an affair with Billy Loomis's dad, and it caused Billy's mom to leave him, and he wants to take the revenge out on Sydney, and he ends up killing. It turns out that he's the one that killed Sydney's mom. So he uses a bunch of offensive terms, and he's just full like someone you don't want to mess with. But Sydney's just terrified. She ends up running away after Gale Weathers, who survived her crash, ends up pointing a gun at them both, and she ends up almost shooting them, but they end up knocking her out, and then Sydney hides in the Ghostface costume. She ends up calling them, and that's where Billy freaks out. He's like smashing chairs, everything. It's crazy. And Stu's like, oh, my mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me. Like, the performance they give, Skeet and Matthew Litter, they're like going full over the top. And it's just, you just see it in their eyes. Like, they went full into this performance. And then what happens next is Sydney's hiding in the closet, and then she pulls out an umbrella, and while Billy's trying to find her, and she pulls out the umbrella and she stabs him, I think almost in the heart. And I think in real life Skeet Ulrich had like a heart problem. He ends up getting, and the scream you hear when he's like when he's stabbed by an umbrella, that's actually him actually in pain. It was all accident, I assume. And then what happens is I think Billy is about to kill Sydney, but what happens is he is shot by Gale Weathers. But how Stu died is he tries to attack Sydney, and what he said he had a thing for her, but he ends up getting his face smashed by a TV. And some people think he's still alive. Do I think he's alive? Probably not, because he would have showed up in the future movies by now. But then Billy, he's killed again by getting shot, because we first thought he died, but then because he has so many stab wounds, he ends up getting shot in the head by Sydney. And then, it's just like, it's crazy. Then the movie ends as Gale Weathers gives the report of what happened. And that's Scream. The best horror movie, has great suspense. Yeah, the kills are over the top. The acting's, it's something. It has a memorable cast. Yeah, maybe I had some nitpicks, but overall, I think I'd give Scream a 10 out of 10. So maybe next year, or maybe if this video does well, probably won't, but this video is for fun, but maybe I'll review the other Scream movies one day. Definitely Scream 6 for my 2023 movie reviews. So that being said,